May I now invite Dr. Murali and Kadiramangalam, Director, National Adi Sankara Mission, to present the paper titled Succinct History of Melpazhur Mana based on Indological Field Research in Veliyanadu. Dr. Murali and Kadiramangalam, our convener, founded South Deccan Archaeology Foundation in late 2024. He holds engineering degree from MS University, Baroda and New York University, where he completed his master's, doctorate and postdoctoral fellowship. After leading a research team at Fluent Incorporation, USC, he founded Fluent Incorporation's world-class R&D Center in Pune, India. He then served as Managing Director of SWHAS India and subsequently oversaw SWHAS Global Academic Program. In 2016, he left industry to pursue archaeological study and research at Deccan College, earning an MPhil and later completing a postdoctoral fellowship. His published book on the Patanjali tradition of Tamilagam appeared in 2020, followed by a paper on the Chidambaram Nadaraja icon published in Berlin Indological Studies. He received the Bandaka Institute Infosys Fellowship in 2023 for conducting archaeological field surveys regarding Adi Sankara in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. In late 2024, Dr. Murali launched the National Adi Sankara Mission, which aims to identify and document existing ancient monuments regarding Sri Shankara and excavate the ones buried below the ground in Kerala. At present, he is director of both SDARF and the National Adi Sankara Mission. I welcome him to deliver his paper. Over to you, sir.
See, this is not my intention to try to grab the attention here, but the thing is, I have been working with each of the families, to try to find their records and help them write up their history. Now, in the course of working with Kapalli and Mana and Kaipalli Mana, some amount of data could be extracted. Whereas in the case of Melpazhur Mana, I would say that Sri Shankara Nambudiri Part has been very kind enough to share whatever knowledge he has. However, prior to that, I had the opportunity to go to CIF Veliyanadu many times and spend long time there. Researching it's come now, I think, isn't it? Researching the history of Melpazhur Mana. I would like to thank the Chinmaya International Foundation for giving me the opportunity for going there and spending time several times. They assisted me in small ways in my research. Now, the question is, where was, Adi Sankara born, right? Now, as both speakers before had said, the practice I understand in the Nambudiri community is that the mother's home, the maternal home, is where Shankara the first child is born. So in this case, we would assume that Shankara was either born in Melpazhur Mana, which is there south of Kalady. We assume that maybe he was born there. If he was not born there, I think the migration has been described by both the Kaipalli family and also later on by who else talked about the migration? Okay, so the migration history was discussed a couple of times, that they moved from Shukapuram and Panniyur. Now, if it so happens to be that they moved from Shukapuram and Panniyur, question is, when did they leave and where were they born? Where was Shankara born? So I have called the Melpazhur Mana, the structures, as the Melpazhur Mana complex, because it's a large 11-acre facility now, right? So he could have been two possibilities. They hailed from Shukapuram, they could have come down south, right? One is that he could have been born in Veliyanadu, or he was born en route. And if he was born en route, then the family carried the legends with them to Melpazhur Mana. So the migration route, the time of departure from Shukapuram, Panniyur, and when they arrived in Veliyanad, these are all unknowns at this point, and they require research, and that has a direct bearing on where Shankara was born. Again, Melpazhur Mana, the physical structure is very important, right? Now, it's gone again. So, I'll just come to it. The question is, when was Melpazhur Mana occupied? That is, when was Veliyanad occupied by the Nambudris? And what we read from, say, it's not connected. What we see from Veluthat's work is that, that general area was occupied at least by the 7th century CE or earlier. That information he has gleaned from various things and written about it. However, I was fortunate enough to actually go there and find a dilapidated temple not very far from Melpazhur Mana, and this is about 8th, 9th century Vishnu Narasimha image which I located in that area, and this firmly establishes that Nambudris were certainly in that part by the 7th century CE or earlier. I mean, this is a very classical image. Unfortunately, it's just lying ruins and there's no worship or anything going on. Right? This was very great opportunity for me to have found this. Now, the other thing is the Pazhur Perumtrikovil. According to the archaeological department, well, the inscriptions there are 12th, 13th century. Okay, and you can read the inscriptions. However, if one looks very closely at the Sri Kovil, the Garbhagriha, it's it's rectangular. Inside, actually, it's rectangular, and the Vimana, it's basically a Dravida Vimana, and in addition to that, the image of the Shivalinga is basically made of sand and pile, weed. You don't see this character of, sand and pile. Ekambreshwara temple in Kanchipuram, is where very ancient Shivalingas is where, so no Abhishekam is done to the Pazhur Perumtrikovil, Mahadeva. So you have the character of the Vimana, the Garbhagriha itself, the central core temple, and the image. That tells you that this area was very occupied very early as well. So one information was already pre-existing, which is the Pazhur Perumtrikovil, and that is not really, the outer section is certainly 12th, 13th century. So I have been able to study the whole part, piece by piece I was able to study this temple, and you can see the accretionary nature of this temple. Means this temple, piece by piece, has been added on from the core shrine. Core shrine is very, very early. Okay, so the Nambudris were certainly there very early, maybe 7th century, maybe even earlier. Right? Now the next thing is the migration period. Right? Now, as I said, Veluthat and then M.G.S. Narayanan and others have said, it's about 7th century or earlier. Right? Now I have mentioned the Vishnu image, which means that definitely that confirms what has been there on the ground. Now there is a traditional chronogram, Chitta Chalanam, which Dr. K.V. Vasudevan helped me interpret. Then later on I found it in K.V. Krishnayar's book itself, which says that the date when the conflict between Shukapuram and Panniyur, which Mr. Ramchandran mentioned, the end of the Kurumatsaram or Kurumalsaram was 564 CE according to that chronogram. Now Krishnayar first dismissed it as being too early, and then later on M.G.S. Narayanan also dismissed it as being too early, and they both said, well, around 1225 there is a copper plate grant of Veeraraghava. Based on that, both the village members, Sukapuram and Panniyur, witnessed that particular copper plate. So anything that happened should have happened after 1225. So it is assumed that the migration period then could be after 1225. Okay, the early evidence in Veliyanad sort of refutes that in a sense. But we cannot say with certainty that the Melpazhur Mana family came to Veliyanad in 7th century or earlier. We can't say that. Right? There is no evidence as yet that I have been able to locate. Now, the migration route. Right? Now, the migration route, people have said, they came from Shukapuram, they went to Peruvanam, Murikulam, Tirumuzhikulam, the Lakshmana temple which is there, and finally to Veliyanad. This Muzhikulam is, I think, fairly certain because in Veliyanad, there is a temple called Mulakulam. I hope I pronouncing it correct, Mulakulam. That Mulakulam temple is a temple dedicated to Lakshmana. The Tidambu from the Muzhikulam temple was supposedly taken by an elephant, or there is a legend about it, and then it was installed in Mulakulam. So the connection is fairly certain that Muzhikulam seems to be a place where both these families seem to have been associated with. I mean, that I think we can take for granted. And this is a photograph of that Mulakulam temple from outside. Now Kalady is about 18 kilometers, and I think that the Kaipuli family can correct me. It's about 18 kilometers from Muzhikulam, and so I think the possibility of coming together in this area, that is the Melpazhur Mana and the paternal family, and I don't want to say who the paternal family is because we've had some issue of who the paternal family is. So the paternal family and the maternal Melpazhur Mana coming together, consequently with the avatar of Shankara taking place subsequently, seems to be quite quite possible, and it's a strong possibility that the geographical proximity allows for that. Now the medieval evidence on the ground. You see, in Melpazhur Mana, there is an image. I'll just show you this. See, there is an image here on the left. There is an image of, purported image of Shankara and Aryamba worshipping at the Shasta temple there. It's on the Sopanam. It's a late image, maybe 17th, 18th, maybe even 19th century. It's a late image. So in no way we can take that image to be evidence of anything. But in the Tirumuriyur Rama temple, I was fortunate to discover below the image of Shiva and Parvati, and then this being Yoga Dakshinamurti, you see the Sannyasa Diksha. The Sannyasa Diksha of the Advaiti Sannyasi here, which likely is Shankara, this I was able to find in the Tirumuriyur Rama temple. That was really it was an astonishing thing for me, because I went back several times to that temple to look at this. Now in all the Pazhur families, Shankaran sir mentioned, in all the Pazhur families, you will see this particular, on the extreme right, there is a motif. There is a motif in the Pazhur Perum Kovil. This motif you will see in every one of their houses. And they were the Uranma of the Pazhur Perum Kovil. So possibly, that could be a reason why, Shankara was born there. I mean, that there is some old connection, right? But most of these, the preponderance of evidence, including what was mentioned about Chotanikara. Chotanikara, if he installed Chotanikara, it was after Sannyasa, it was after Digvijaya, so it was in a later part of his age, not a younger part of his age, which means that probably he visited that area, probably because all the images there seem to suggest that it was post Sannyasa, including Chotanikara Bhagavati. So, as I said, they were the Uranma of Pazhur Perum Kovil. Maybe that could have been a possibility. Now, the Swamijis of SIF, of Chinmaya Foundation, I had an opportunity to show my work to them, and they pointed to an old image. Okay, before I go to that, let me just talk about this. There are still things to be done. Okay, we can't dismiss, we can't say Shankara was not born in Veliyanad. We cannot say that. We cannot say with certainty that he was born there either. But there are 7 manuscripts which I have just come across. I had to still go and get those manuscripts. I have been confirmed that they are of the Melpazhur Mana. I have to go and get them. Some other manuscripts have emerged also. Now, this head of SIF, he pointed to me to a 10th, 11th century Sri Krishna image, originally at Melpazhur Mana, but it has been moved to Siddhabari in Himachal Pradesh, where the Samadhi of Chinmaya is. Okay? And all we can say, this is that particular This is that particular Sri Krishna image. It's a very old Sri Krishna image. It's 10th, 11th century, and now it is at Siddhabari. But Saraswati Amma one day told me, I just don't want to misquote her, she said, they carried the images on their shoulders and brought them. I mean, that's what she had told me, that many a times during migration, they would carry the images, is what she told me. So even this then becomes questionable, whether, this is, conclusive evidence. At this point, I would say that we have to study the manuscripts. We also have to conduct additional Indological surveys at Veliyanad, at Shukapuram and Mulikulam, and that will, I think, give us an indication of where Shankara was born. And see, the importance of Adi Sankara Nilayam, which was acquired by Puja Gurudev Sri Chinmayananda Swamiji, in no way that importance will reduce. Okay? The reason is that is the last known, that is the only standing structure which is connected with a family connected to Shankara. That is the only standing structure in our nation. That is only. So the importance of that place cannot reduce. Let's say tomorrow, hypothetically, we find that he was indeed born in Mulikulam. That doesn't mean the importance of Veliyanad, that is Melpazhur Mana complex in Veliyanad, will reduce. In fact, my suggestion is we should create a national, first a Kerala and then a national Shankara circuit. And I think these places, especially Melpazhur Mana, if Chinmaya people permit, should be part of that national Adi Sankara circuit, so that ultimately people know what all happened during the course of the life of Shankara. It almost, there is a strong hint from what I can see in the evidence that Shankara has traversed to that region after sannyasa. That is based on the images and other material that I have gathered. So at this stage, I would say some more work is needed to be done. It's pending. And that we cannot conclude one way or the other that this or that is the birthplace. That is, I just wanted to add this much to whatever Shankaran sir said, so that we complete the picture about the families. Because if I could have pushed somebody in Melpazhur Mana, like what Chandran sir and Ajayan sir said, I would have done it, and we would have probably gotten far with regard to the history, some more of the history. So thank you very much. Sorry to have taken more of your time, and I continue to take your time. My apologies for that.